But I want to give you a few stats about Michael. Michael is a France native. Now she has multiple wins across the seas. She was France's apprentice champion in 2018, and in 2020 set a record number of wins for a foreign jockey on a short-term contract in Japan of 30. She's ridden in 12 countries, won races in 8, and stakes in 4. Very, very impressive resume. Now, Kylie, she's known on Twitter anyway as the Midwest Princess. I love that. Her dad, Todd Jordan, is a trainer, so she grew up in the sport. She was a leading apprentice at Prairie Meadows in 2022, the leading rider at Will Rogers Downs and Prairie Meadows in 2023, and had a mount in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint this last year. And you're kind of double dipping right now because no days off for you, am I right?
Yeah, I ride 6 days a week right now. I go to Oklahoma Sunday nights and then come back Wednesday nights and staying busy, staying real busy.
So can I ask how old you are, Kylie?
20. I just turned 21.
Just turned 21. Mm-hmm. So obviously you grew up in the sport with your dad training horses. At what age did you realize I'm ready to make this a career?
I never really wanted to be a jockey. It just kind of happened. I went to Houston and was galloping for Steve Asmussen, and then I went to Will Rogers to help my dad gallop horses and get ready for Iowa. And I was working a lot of horses over there in Oklahoma, and I just decided to do it, and I was 18.
Might as well get a better paycheck for it.
Yeah,
just ride them in the afternoons.
Right, yep.
So, Mikhail, tell us how you were introduced to the sport of horse racing.
So at 14 in France, you have to choose which job do you want to do.
At 14?
Yes, you have to choose your high school, and so which way you're going to choose.
What path you're going to take, okay.
So I would love to, I went to work with horses, and I searched on internet which job can I do with horses, because I just don't want to do a normal job. And then I found a jockey schools next to my family's house, and I go there 1 week, try it, and I just fall in love with horse racing. Start like this.
So were you familiar with some of the other big French jockey names that have come to the States and had a lot of success?
Yes. We know American races is very famous, and you have one of the best races in the world in USA. So I always want to come here and try American races because it's really different than in Europe. So at the beginning of 2022, I decided to move here and try this experience.
So what is the process coming from a foreign country over to the States? Do you have to get sponsored by someone, or how does that process work?
It's tough. So you have
but it was worth it, right?
Yes. So you have to find a sponsor and ask a visa, and you have to prove that you are a good jockey already and you are really motivated, and you will work here. And then if they accept your visa, you have to move all your stuff and all your life and just try to find an agent and everything.
So can I ask how old you are?
I'm 27.
So already have very established careers at a very young age and certainly made a name for themselves in the national headlines. Mikhail is actually, she rides for Dwayne Lucas, who kind of mentored her when she came over to the United States, but she has a connection to a horse in the favorite in the Grade 1 Apple Blossom today, as she is the work rider for Secret Oath. So give us a little tea. What are your thoughts about? Because I saw the last 5/8 work and it was beautiful.
I rode many horses, good horses in my life, but this one is very special because she's just perfect. She has a perfect mind. She's fast. She's never exciting, and she loves what she's doing. I think she takes a lot of pleasure to run, and today looks really good, and I think she will win this race really easy. I would love to ride her.
You've already got the handicapping done for the Apple Blossom, so we're done. So Kylie had a winner on yesterday's card, and tell us the prep process, because they have agents that represent them. They kind of obtain the mounts for them. They might work those horses in the mornings, but they also handle their business at the draw when the races are done. Mikhail is represented by Becky Esch, and you are Brian Assman. So tell us how those connections came about.
I got Brian Assman in Iowa right away. He picked me up when I was a bug, and I mean, he kind of handled my business, and Will Rogers too, and he's been great. I mean, I might not be on like the best horses, but I'm going to be on horses. Like I get a lot of mounts with him. He makes sure that I'm riding something in every race, tries to anyways. And he kind of runs Iowa in a way, so it's been really good, and it worked out last year.
Look over at the far turn. We have two female jockeys galloping the wrong way, so they'll come up here momentarily. That's Kelsey Hart and Chelsea Bailey. Tell us how you came with Becky.
So when Dwayne Lucas asked me if I want to come here and ride for him, I said, okay, but I need an agent, and I know nobody because I just moved in USA 6 months early. So he helped me, and he knows Becky, so he introduced me to Becky.
And an agent could be very, very important, because say you have two horses go in the same race, it's partially that agent's job to figure out who they're going to give the commitment to and what's the better horse, who's your better shot. So do you ladies have any input when that might happen?
Brian will give me two horses, and I tell him to pick, so I can't be mad at myself. I can be mad at him.
Smart girl, smart girl.
But I'm just like, you can pick. I don't want to make the last decision, and so.
I want to welcome Chelsea Bailey. She looks like a superhero. And Kelsey Hart, as I pointed out earlier on the track. I want to give you some quick stats on these two ladies. Chelsea is actually a former mixed martial arts fighter. So you might have, if you follow that sport like I do religiously, you knew the name before she was a rider. She was the leading apprentice here at the 2021-22 meet and had her very first stakes win this meet in the Down the Dusty Road, and has a mount in the Grade 1 $1 million Apple Blossom. We're going to talk about that in just a second. Kelsey has been riding since 2018, an Arkansas native. She was Oaklawn's leading apprentice jockey in 2020. She was the first female jockey in Oaklawn history to surpass $1 million in earnings, and then is now the leading female money earner here at Oaklawn. So everybody, I want you to give them a big round of applause for all the hard work that they have accomplished. Now, Chelsea, big day today for you.
Absolutely.
Is this your first graded stakes mount?
Yes.
And it's in a Grade 1 $1 million race.
It's my derby.
It's your what?
It's my derby.
It is her derby. So the Apple Blossom is just a field of 4. It equals the shortest field in the history of the running of the race. But it's an interesting, because you kind of have a special connection to this horse and Burl McBride. So tell us about that.
I actually broke her maiden last year, and she placed 4th in the fantasy last year, so I wouldn't say that, we're too far off from, most of the horses in the race today are speed, so we come off of the pace. Me and Burl McBride, we actually have really good stats together, and
they do, very good stats together.
So I'm really excited to be able to ride this filly in this race today. It's really special.
So Kelsey had a whole media crew come out the other day, do a feature on her. Kelsey won the nightcap last night for trainer Al Cates and owner Buster Babb. But you're extremely busy. You are nonstop. Kelsey also has how old is Lacey?
She just turned 11 April the 4th.
She has an 11-year-old daughter, so she's a full-time mom, a full-time jockey, and her fiance is trainer Robert Klein. So when do you sleep?
I get a little bit at night, but I don't get to spend much time at home. If you saw my house right now, you wouldn't call me the best housekeeper. My laundry's piled high and the dishes are dirty, but the horses are took care of and the kids happy, so that's what matters.
So Kelsey, these two ladies have already told me, but tell us how you got introduced to horse racing.
It's kind of a long story. The short version of it, I grew up rodeoing and riding barrel horses and pole bending. My dad was a bull rider. My brother was a bull rider. I kind of did the rodeo world, and So that was my introduction to horses when I was in diapers. I started riding ponies and grew up doing that all through high school. And my mom got a job here at the racetrack for trainer Rick Jackson, walking hots, back when he had Superior Storm. And I just came over and started hanging out and walking the barns and trying to work any way they'd let me. And I eventually was wanting to ride, and nobody put me on anything. And finally got that to happen and started galloping for many years, and took off with my fiance after we met to Delaware, and I worked out at Maryland at a training center for Michael Matz for the summer and learned a lot there, and just kept galloping for a few years until the need for speed became more and more in the back of my mind. So I got the opportunity. We had some nice horses, and my fiance thought it was time for me to kind of try it out, and the rest is history. We went from there, and no looking back. Love it.
So, Chelsea, tell us your introduction to the sport, because a lot of times racing is generational. We have a family member that's involved, but you had a different family member that introduced you.
It is a long story, but the short version is I did grow up with horses, so it wasn't that I came from absolutely not being on a horse to getting on the horses, but I was pretty heavily involved with sports, with wrestling and fighting. And when I was living in Las Vegas and fighting there, I met my husband, David, who is from England. And so he actually got me involved with horse racing. And we came here to Oaklawn Park. This is basically my home track. And kind of the rest is history from there.
So tell us what one of the biggest transitions is going from one professional sport to another professional sport, because the fact that you've really made your name, because when you Google Chelsea Bailey, the first thing that does come up when I Googled you was your MMA stats and your career, and she actually appeared on The Ultimate Fighter, which is one of my favorite shows, by the way. But anything that you use from your fighting career over to your professional career as a jockey?
They both have a lot of similarities. They both involve cutting weight, and they are both weight balanced sports. And you get to work with four-legged athletes, so it's kind of like with fighting, you get to work with other athletes, and then here you get to work with the animal version of athletes. But there are quite a few factors that kind of go in that are about a parallel of being a jockey and being an MMA fighter.
So Mikhail, as we mentioned, is from France and ridden all over the world. Any adjustments that you had to make to your riding style? Because the European version is fairly different than the American version. Anything that you had to tweak, and was there anything that you maybe had an advantage over?
So first, it's the dirt track. We don't have any dirt track in Europe. So
no dirt tracks whatsoever in Europe. Is there a synthetic?
We have always a track and turf track. So first in Europe, every country runs different style. Like in England, the race go really fast. In France, we go really slow. And I have been in Japan during a few months, and I learned over there to ride on the dirt track. So it was nice when I came here because I know already the dirt. But in USA, the race go really fast. You have to brake fast from the gates. So that's what I have to learn a lot of, because it's not like this in the rest of the world. And then I have to work a lot on my style, because in USA the style is really important, and you have to be very down on the horse.
Right.
And in France we are very high. So I'm still working on.
I need to go to France.
Kelsey says I need to go to France. So Kylie, tell us, because as we mentioned, she was the regular rider for Tyler's Tribe, who competed in the Breeders' Cup last year. Had you already had your 21st birthday?
Yeah.
When you rode? So 21 and already riding in the Breeders' Cup. Tell us about that whole experience, because there was a lot of press surrounding Tyler's Tribe. How did you take all that in?
It was overwhelming a little bit, but I mean, I just took it in stride. But every time I turned around, somebody wanted to interview me, and I felt like I was telling the same story over and over again. But it was a great experience. So I'm super happy that I was able to do that, and it was a great opportunity.
So all of these women have had several years to hone their craft. What is the most challenging thing about being a jockey?
I think it's the mental side of the sport, just the getting up and grinding every day and working as hard as you can, and you have certain people that appreciate that, and you have certain people that don't, and it takes a toll on you. It takes a toll on your family life and everything at home, and I feel like you got a lot of critics and everybody judging you a lot. So for me, that's the hardest part. I like to work. I like to get up and ride horses. For that part of it, to me, is fun. Doesn't feel like work, but the politics of the sport is the hard part for me.
Chelsea, what about you?
Mental aspect and gender.
Can you elaborate on that?
I hate pulling the sexism card, but women do get treated differently than males do.
It is a male-dominated sport. You'll see men in higher management positions. You'll see the room is dominated by male riders, as you can see at the top of the standings. But that does not mean that these ladies don't work just as hard, if not harder. Mikhail, what do you think is the most challenging thing about being a jockey?
I'm 100% agree with Chelsea. For me, it's the mind, because we have to still change the mind. When we meet a trainer, they still saw a girl first and second jockey. And it's really a hard job. You can work some horses in the morning, but you are not sure to ride this horse on the race. Some trainer take you off some horses, and everything can happen every day, so you have to be very strong on your mind.
What about you, Kylie?
I'd probably have to agree with Kelsey. Talking to the trainers and everybody, it's hard. You know, their horse doesn't run good, and you have to come back and you have to come up with something to tell them, and that's hard for me. The communication part.
Obviously, when a horse comes back and something doesn't go right, you're the first to blame.
We say the jockeys go first, and then the farrier, and then the trainer, and
then the track, and then the weather, and then
we're always the first one to blame and the first one to go.
The stock market and all that kind of stuff. So let's get into a little more of the gender roles, because women, the sport's been around for hundreds of years. It's a sport of kings. We see a lot of female exercise riders on the backside, and they play integral parts in trainers' success. So what is it that you think needs to be either corrected or understood to really make that transition? Chelsea, I'm going to let you go first.
Well, I guess just speaking from experience, for me, it's hard when you see somebody from another country who gets more opportunity than the American, and with them, being a male and you being a female and you working just as hard or doing more work and working harder, and they get granted more opportunity than you do. It kind of underlies down to opportunity, just getting the opportunity. That's all you need.
Do you feel like you get the same respect from the male riders in the room? Do they treat you out on the track the same as they would treat their male counterpart? Mikhail, what do you think?
No.
That just shows you how tough it is to be a female in this industry. Like I heard Chelsea give an interview the other day, it doesn't say female rider on her license. It says jockey. It doesn't say female jockey.
I did steal that from Mikkel, because she's really brought light to that, and it's very accurate.
Yeah.
And the same thing with being a fighter. You're a fighter, not an MMA fighter, or a female MMA fighter. You're just a fighter.
Right. So Kelsey touched on something, and that's the mental health aspect. And that has really not only been in the headlines for sports across the board, but really has hit home the last couple of years in horse racing. And sadly, with young riders deciding to take their own lives because of criticism. What do you do to stay mentally healthy, to stay balanced? What's your go-to? Kylie, what about you?
I would just say, trying not to let the little things get to you. Everybody's going to get hate mail or, whatever, but in any sport you do, you just have to let it go and keep moving forward, But it's a tough sport. Having to watch your weight, getting up early in the morning, having late nights, and you just got to make sure that you're taking care of yourself.
Mikhail, what do you do to find the balance?
Just enjoy some simple moments, like go to the restaurant with my husband and just speak about everything but not horse racing.
That's kind of nice, and that's hard when you're married into horse racing to leave it at the barn, so to speak. Chelsea, do you still? Because being a professional athlete in another sport, there's a lot of discipline, mental discipline in mixed martial arts. Do you find that that's helped you maintain a mental balance?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's a lot of grueling training, and I mean, out here it's a different type. Like Kylie said, you're up here really early. There's late nights, so like I said, there is a lot of parallels with it. But personally, I spend a lot of time in the gym to focus on training and exercise, and I like to spend a lot of time outdoors, hiking and running to just kind of clear my head.
Kelsey, what about you? What's your zen?
Probably just hanging out with my family. My little girl, she keeps me pretty grounded. I can come here and everybody can be mad at me. I can ride a great race yesterday, and 2 races before that I was getting cussed out because of how bad of the race was that I rode. So when I leave here at the end of the day, I go home to a family that loves me and a little girl that I can't do any wrong in her eyes. She doesn't care if I win or lose. So for me, she is it. She's the key to all of me being able to keep my mind straight. But it is, like they say, tough. It's hard. It's your diet is wrong. We don't eat properly. That in itself, I mean, people say they get hangry for a reason, and you can imagine a room full of hangry people, and we're all competing against one another and just trying to do our best. And it's a cutthroat sport. Everybody wants to be on the best horse and work for the best trainers, and there's also some loyalty left to a few of the riders that try not to step on toes or get in a barn that they necessarily haven't been in, or just come in to ride the big horse and somebody else has done all the work. So there is still some of that, and that gives me hope for the future that there are still good people and people that will hold true to their word, and if they say they're going to ride you and you work the horse 6-7 times for them, when race day comes you're actually going to get to ride it. And maybe you don't win the first time out, but maybe that trainer still sticks with you and you get to try it the next time and you get to know the horse better and y'all do win the second time and everybody's just as happy. So just like Chelsea said, getting out, getting away from here, going and seeing that this isn't it. I think a lot of jockeys, they become a jockey and that's all they feel like their worth is of. They don't feel like if they do anything else is anything better than being a jockey, and there are better things than being a jockey. And my favorite thing is being a mom to my little girl. And when you walk away from this place, nobody knows who we are. When we cross the street and go out into public, we're just another human being. We're not famous. We're not special in any kind of way. And
I disagree. I think you're all special. And
well, I think we're special, but I think that people definitely put too much into being a jockey, and their whole life depends on that and what people think of them. And if you go into it that way, it's going to be a very hard career. And you kind of just have to remember that there's other things in life that mean more than winning a race.
That's a good way to think of it. There's more to life than winning a race. Now, part of being a jockey is also being a good handicapper. And part of their job before they even get on the horse is looking what the horse has done in the past. So how do you handicap a race? Do you kind of have an idea before you go out and get instructions from your trainer?
I'll look at a program for a little bit. I just kind of figure out the horse's running styles, if they're a speed horse or if they come from way off of it, or just kind of figure out their running styles and set up the race in my head a little bit, like, oh, this horse is probably going to go on the lead, maybe I can sit right off of it. But it all changes as soon as those gates open.
Very true.
You could stumble out of the gates, or anything can happen. So you can look at the program all day long, but you're not going to know how that race is going to run for sure.
I agree. I totally agree. How do you handicap a race, Mikhail?
Every morning when I take my breakfast before races, I watch the race of my horse, how he likes to run and what he doesn't like to do. And I do the same for all the horses in the race. I want to be back of the gate and know this horse has a good change and I can follow him, and this horse doesn't have a good change. But like Kylie said, everything could happen, so we just have to
adapt and overcome is definitely part of the sport. Chelsea, you're a pretty good handicapper. I've seen your styles, and you too.
I beg to differ.
Do you watch replays? Do you just kind of, because as a horse owner, I know that a lot of times I've heard instructions being given, and I'm like, really? Is that what they said? I mean, how many times do you kind of want to override what the trainer tells you?
Well, if you follow the trainer's directions, you can't get in trouble.
Good point.
So it risks you from not getting fired, but it could also risk you winning the race. Kind of like what Mikkel said, I personally like to watch it a day before or so and like let it sit on my mind and then come back the day of and watch it. But I also like to watch the other horses as well, because it's kind of like backside information. If you pay attention to the other races, you kind of know what your competition is and how they've done before, and they'll, you're here all meet, so you're going to be going against them again. But like everybody says, as soon as the gate breaks and something happens,
right. And even during the running of the race, something can happen and just make you totally have to abort that game plan. Now, a lot of these ladies actually get on, as they mentioned, the horses that they ride in the afternoons, and you get on a good part of Robert's horses. Does that maybe give you a little inside track of how the horse is doing and so forth?
Yes, ma'am, I believe so. I think that's a big advantage, is getting to ride my horses. I've rode them, a lot of them, since they were babies. Robert broke them, and then I started getting on them as soon as they were quit bucking. So I've known them, I've worked them all along through all their works, and kind of have a little bit of a connection with them, and kind of know whether they like the rail or if they'll go through a hole or if they'd rather be on the outside. Or it takes a few races, like I said, to get to know these horses. Sometimes you get on one and we joke we're not avatars. We don't get to connect our ponytails and them just do everything that we say. But sometimes it takes a race or two to get to know a horse, and I think I have an advantage because I do know them and I do get on them pretty much every day.
Now, Jim Byers, our track announcer, texted me after the last race, and he said, ask Kelsey if that's her signature running or her signature riding style, sitting back and making that one big move in the stretch, a la Bandit Point.
It is my favorite running style. I'd rather chase them down any day than be on the front worrying about them chasing me down. So everybody to each their own, but I love a good closer. They're always fun. It's always a thrill. Everybody gets excited, and I always worry about my mama having a heart attack there towards the end.
Chelsea, now you, I think, are the opposite. You really, really love the speed, and you're very aggressive on the front end. Is that kind of what you prefer?
I feel like I can go both ways. Like it really depends on the horse, because if you have a closer, you can't rush
right.
it, So I feel like there's a lot of advantage of getting a good position, but it depends on the horse. But
right.
It's also good to know that you have the capabilities of getting a horse out on the front when it needs to be out there.
Very strong finisher. All of these ladies are very strong finishers, and I've had horsemen come up to me and say, who was that rode that horse? What jock was that? And when I tell them, oh, it was Mikkel, it was Chelsea, they're like, wow. And I'm like, you shouldn't be surprised. They have just as much skill as everybody else in the room. Kelsey, what's something on your horse racing bucket list?
Bucket list. There's a lot on my bucket list. There's actually a lot of the big tracks that I haven't got to go see yet. Like I said, got a little girl and a fiance, and family life kind of keeps me a little grounded. So I'd like to go see some of the bigger racetracks. I'd like to go to Del Mar. I'd like to go to Saratoga. I'd like to go see some places I haven't seen before. I've ridden at Churchill. Never won a race there. That would be great. We all dream of a Derby mount. Anybody out there that wants a girl, we're all hungry.
What about you, Chelsea? What's something on your horse racing bucket list?
I got a few things, but I think like Kelsey, a Derby, that would be, today $1 million race is
that's huge.
It's pretty epic. I just won a stakes race, and that was one of the things on my list. So yeah, I'm going to go with Kelsey, riding a Derby.
Yeah.
And she's going to get a big check out of it.
Yeah.
A very big check, which is
dinner's on her tonight.
Mikkel, you've already ridden all over the world. What's something still left on your bucket list?
I didn't ride on some country like Canada, but I just want to still do what I did, travel all over the world, ride on the best track with the best jockey, and to ride on the best event like a Derby Day or Breeders' Cup Day in Dubai World Cup. What I did, and just continue to do that.
All right, Kylie, you've already ridden at the Breeders' Cup. What's next? Other than the Derby. Everybody wants to win a Derby.
I want my dad to get some more champions in the barn so I can win a stakes race for him. I think that would be that's probably top of my list, but I like winning races for my dad. I'd rather win a race for my dad any day of the week than anybody else. But
So as we saw the tractors go by, it's going to be first after break here shortly. So Kylie actually has, does anybody else have workers first after? Okay, so real quickly, while I wrap this up, tell us what's next for Kylie. What happens at the end of Oaklawn? Where do you go?
I'll have a couple weeks left in Oklahoma, and then I'll head up to Iowa. Iowa's home for me, and I'll stay there all summer and hopefully come back here next year.
With another leading rider title.
I hope so.
There you go. All right, Mikhail, what's up for you after Oaklawn wraps up?
So I leave Oaklawn in 10 days, go back to Kentucky, and just continue to get business in USA because I'm still a new one, so I need to show my face to every trainer.
Are you excited for turf racing?
Yes, but in USA it's strange, but I prefer to ride on the dirt.
Really?
Yes, the turf is completely different than in Europe. It's really hard turf, fast track. So I love to ride on the turf here, but I prefer to ride on the dirt.
We've converted you. I like that.
I love the kickback.
You love the kickback. It's like a free facial.
I'm back so dirty.
Chelsea, what about you? Because you kind of went all over last summer, and I follow her on Instagram, and the pictures were amazing. What's on the schedule for Chelsea?
I'm focused on finishing up Oaklawn strong, and I'm still undecided on what I'm going to be doing next, but it's kind of finishing here strong, and
right.
I don't know, it could be anything.
I love that. What about you, Kelsey?
I'm headed to Minnesota when Oaklawn's over. I believe we've been there going on, this will be our 6th year, and I love it there. I actually rode my first race there on Bandit Point and won, and so my career started there. I've got a lot of friends, and my little girl goes. She loves it. And I get to ride my quarter horses up there, so I'm really excited to go do that.
She's game.
And,
she's riding quarter horses.
yeah.
I call them the short necks, but you're game. Everybody, I want you to give a big round of applause to these amazing athletes and what they have to put up with in the sport. There's a lot of bond between you girls because they share a very tight quarters in the girls' jocks room.
A closet.
The closet. But you really do have a bond. You cheer for each other, and you kind of...
It's us versus them, all the boys.
But
We're very blessed that
small
we
and
all get
skinny.
along well, and they're a great group of girls. I love each one of them. Mikhail came in, and we didn't know what to think about the Frenchie coming in, but she's fit right in, and we love her. And like I said, we're blessed. You don't find this much. It's hard for girls to get along these days for whatever reason, jealousy or whatever, but we all put that all aside. We all root for each other hard in the jocks room, jump up and down, scream and holler, and I like to see each one of these girls do good. We all split up and go our separate ways, and I'm going to miss all of them.
We got to have the girls do good.
The what?
We have to have the girls do good.
Yes, absolutely. So with Miss Phyllis, can you come up here for a second? This is Phyllis Hall. She has been coming to the races since 1962. 63 years. Curtis, can we get a picture with all the ladies and Phyllis? Kevin. Oh my gosh, I'm going to get smacked for that. Okay, before these ladies go, please give them one more huge round of applause for all the hard work that they have put in and all of the nonsense that they have had to put up with, because I am right there with you. Ladies, get out of here. The track is open. Thank you so much.